You're not buying things. You're buying the person you wish you were. Think about the last thing you bought when you were stressed. It wasn't just a product, was it? It was actually a version of yourself. So that gym membership, that's the fit person of you. The business course, that's the successful person. The productivity planner, that's the organized version of yourself. And companies actually know this. They're not selling you items. They're selling you identities. When you're stressed, the gap between who you are and who you think you should be feels massive. So what you end up doing is you try to buy your way across that gap. 30 seconds of dopamine, and then that results in months of payments. And you're still the same person. So what I'm going to do is in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 6 reasons stress spending works like this, and also why it's so hard to stop once it starts. And I'll also give some practical steps you can implement immediately along the way. So the first thing I realized was that stress spending isn't a willpower issue. It's actually a chemistry issue. So the science behind this, when you're stressed, your brain is literally flooded with cortisol. And that's the hormone that's screaming that there's a threat detected in your system. And your brain's solution to this is to give you a hit of dopamine in order to balance it out. Shopping literally triggers dopamine and seeing ads for things that promise to make your life easier. I used to think personally I was just weak, but it turns out I'm just human. That dopamine hit, essentially, lasts about 30 seconds. But that purchase, that's on your credit card for months. And this doesn't just work if you just avoid the shops. You could be doom scrolling on Instagram at 11 p.m. and you're seeing targeted ads for productivity tools or self-improvement courses. Your stressed brain at that time is going to say, yes, that will fix everything. The second reason why stress makes us spend money is that it's never been easier in human history to spend money. So think of the contrast in the past compared to now. 20 years ago, if you wanted to buy something, you'd get in your car, you'd drive somewhere, you'd end up pulling out your wallet, and then you'd have to hand over cash or card, and then sign something maybe. There were like 7 steps involved between I want that and I own that. Now though, you just have to tap a button. You've got Apple Pay, one-click checkout, you've got saved payment information everywhere. Basically, the friction has been completely removed. And this matters when you're stressed because your prefrontal cortex, the part that goes, wait, do I actually need this, is offline, essentially. Stress literally shuts down your rational decision making. So when there's zero friction between impulse and purchase, that's basically a recipe for disaster. Something that worked for me is that I don't actively save my payment information on my phone, so I have to manually type in my card details for all purchases. It's definitely annoying, it takes a lot of time, and it's not effective at all. But it has cut impulse purchases just by adding back that 10 seconds of friction. The third point is that you're being bombarded with advertisements everywhere, all the time. And companies know exactly when you're vulnerable. So I saw a statistic that said on an average day, apparently we're exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads. And that's not an exaggeration. Billboards, Instagram, YouTube, podcasts, emails, text messages, they're basically everywhere and you can't really avoid them. And usually what happens is it's not the ads that are obvious that get you, the ones that say buy this now in caps. It's the ones disguised as content. So for example, an influencer casually mentioning their new camera, or some productivity guru that's talking about morning routine supplements. When you're stressed, you're not just vulnerable to buy this thing messages. You're actually vulnerable to your life would be better if you bought so-and-so. And those ads are literally everywhere. The reality is the companies winning right now aren't the ones with the best products. It's actually the ones that can get inside your feed when you're at your lowest. Why don't you try it out? Pull up your Instagram and count how many ads you see in 1 minute of scrolling. Then there's also this cultural thing that makes everything worse. We've been taught that spending money on ourselves is self-care. So there's messages that we've constantly absorbed. Had a bad day? Treat yourself. If you're feeling overwhelmed, then some retail therapy would never hurt. Except it does hurt, because what you're actually doing is you're teaching your brain that stress equals to spending. You're building a neural pathway in your brain that says, when I feel bad, I'm going to buy things. What ends up happening is you don't even enjoy the purchases anymore. You're kind of just completing the loop that your brain expects. And I think the shift is actually realizing that actual self-care, so the stuff that reduces stress long-term, usually costs nothing. It could be something as simple as going for a walk or calling a friend. But those things, they don't give you the instant dopamine hit, so they feel less satisfying in the moment. The next reason why we spend when we're stressed is that a lot of stress spending is actually about who you think you should be. If you're stressed about your career, you buy business books and courses that you never finish. If you feel behind financially, you buy investment newsletters. If you feel out of shape, you buy workout gear. The realization is that you're not buying products. You're actually buying the idea of being the person who has their life together. And that's the thing about doom spending, because you're trying to purchase your way out of the gap between who you are and who you think you should be. And companies actually know this. The ads aren't selling you a planner. They're selling you the identity of an organized person. So they're not selling you a course. They're selling you the identity of someone who's figured it out. Think about the last thing you bought when you were stressed. Was it the product you wanted or the version of yourself you wanted to be? And here's the final reason this pattern is so hard to break. Because stress spending creates more stress, which creates more spending. There's a cycle. You stress spend £200, then you feel guilty about the £200. That guilt is stressful. So you end up buying something else to feel better about feeling bad for the first purchase. The debt piles up and the guilt compounds. So you end up more stressed than when you started. And the only way to break this is by deciding that one purchase mistake isn't a reason to make 10 more. So you have to give yourself permission to feel bad about an impulse purchase without using that bad feeling as justification for another one. So here's a few practical steps you can use to actually deal with this. So the first method is, for me personally, whenever I feel the urge to buy something, especially when I'm stressed, I'll usually just write it down on a whiteboard. And then I'll just let it sit for a couple of days. It's not as a test of willpower, just kind of as a buffer. If I still want it in a couple of days, and I can actually articulate a reason beyond I feel like rubbish and this might help, then I'll consider purchasing it. What ends up happening is a lot of the things that I write down, I don't end up buying because I wasn't actually wanting the thing. I just wanted relief from the stress. Also, another method, like I mentioned before in the video, I deleted my saved payment information from websites on my phone. And yeah, it is annoying to type in my card details all the time, but that's the point. That extra friction essentially gives my brain a chance to catch up with my impulse. And finally, probably the most important method is to stop following people who make their money by making you feel like your life is insufficient. So unfollow the influencers or unsubscribe from the promotional emails. You can't willpower your way past thousands of daily ads telling you that you're not enough. So what you have to end up doing is change what you're seeing in the first place. Realistically, if you start paying attention to when and why you're spending, you'll probably see a shift in a few weeks. You won't stop impulse spending entirely. I still do it sometimes. But you will start catching yourself in the act instead of just waking up to the credit card bill. The thing that makes this fail is thinking you can logic your way out of it whilst still being in the same environment. What you have to do is change the inputs. So less ads, more friction, and better awareness of what you're actually trying to fix. And the final challenge? Go watch my video on why no one our age has money saved. Because understanding why you're stressed about money in the first place is half the battle. That video plus this one, that's your financial wake-up call. And whilst you're here, check out the rest of my personal finance videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.